Hello and welcome back to another exciting podcast episode of American Pylon. I'm your host, Will Mehall. Psych! It's your boy Brent Johnson here.
Breezy.
New host. Will actually is on an exotic trip down to Australia with the girlfriend. So I am taking his place today. So I appreciate you guys allowing me the opportunity to do this. We are here with our usual counterparts, James Thomas Fanning IV and Tyler Combs. Also joined by last week's first-time guest, Cole Erickson.
What to do, baby?
Now regular.
Yeah, now regular. So, anyways, before we kind of get things started off, want to.
Producer Dave's not here?
Oh, and producer Dave's. I'm sorry.
Behind the tech, making all of this possible.
Behind the tech, making all of this possible. We'll never forget you, Dave, except for just now. Anyways, before we get things started off, wanted to kick things off by thanking our headline sponsor, Ed Freeman State Farm. I myself and everyone here at this table uses Ed for their insurance needs, and
David.
And David, yes.
And the man behind the tech.
Producer Dave, yep. And anyway, so if you have a life, if you have a boat, if you have a car, motorcycle,
Anything,
what's the other
yeah.
one?
If you own it, Cole.
Yeah, yep. An apartment, yeah. Renter's insurance. Anyways, just call Ed. He's the best agent in the state, if not the cosmos. So don't forget Ed Freeman State Farm. So. Anyways, kicking things off, obviously we just had a 27-0 victory against Missouri. Solid victory. Obviously if you look at the last score or the ending score, it was 27-0. Pretty solid, but obviously some things that we want to review and kind of nitpick here or there. Just to kind of start things off, Jim, what was your take from the game?
Biggest takeaway if you're looking for a positive is going to be the defense. It's our third shutout of the year. This defense is really, really good, and I think people are wringing their hands so much about the offense that we're kind of like letting that fly under the radar. It seems like even in the national media, we don't seem to have, we don't have like a Roquan Smith. We don't have, an All-American, like a Quinnen Williams for Alabama last year, which is what what the national media, the other guys, what they like to kind of latch onto. So because of that, we kind of fly under the radar. People, are finding ways to discount our defense because of the teams we played, the quality of offense. We played a couple backup quarterbacks, but at the end of the day, allowing only 10 points per game is those are elite numbers no matter who you're playing. So I think the defense is just playing at a really, really high level right now. We go like 22, 24 guys deep, and there's really no drop-off anywhere. I think that, especially with the D-line, that wasn't the story last year. There were times like when Jordan Davis came out, it was like, oh, here we go. Like, they're going to run on us at 7 yards per carry until he can catch his breath and come back in. And I don't feel like we have that steep of a drop-off at any one position. So it's fun to watch this defense work.
Tyler?
I mean, it's hard to take away any positives greater than what the defense showed. I mean, through, 9 weeks now? Obviously, the average score against us is trending downward with the 3 shutouts in the season. That's obviously great to see. Offensive, I was just to counter Jim's point, not even a counter, but just to shift focus there. The offense, I mean, like he said, people are kind of wringing their hands. There seems to be two narratives. People aren't too worried because our best game's in front of us because we haven't seen it yet like we think we're capable of, or you're very worried about our offense. Just because of how many points we leave on the field. But I think if you look at the yards, we move the ball, we get there, and we can get into it later in this show. But it's just a few things that if we correct, that score's a blowout. Obviously you can point to the George Pickens is number one, but just to correct a few things on some of those snaps and some of the younger talent making mistakes or some of the new things we're implementing in the run game with pooling and stuff, where mistakes are made because we're not quite comfortable with that scheme or those new wrinkles yet that are kind of costing us in some of those. In the minutia and the details of some of those plays that are preventing us from having that big score. So I would just say calm down. You see the yards, you see us move the ball. We just got to finish a drill. And thankfully we have three more games around out the season to kind of warm up and fine tune that heading to the games that really matter. Obviously a big one coming up, but right. I would just say look at the offensive numbers at least. We're at least moving the ball. It's just we'll get into how we can finish a drill.
Yeah, I'm definitely pretty encouraged by what we saw at George Pickens though. I mean. Yeah. But I had a pretty good performance, minus the one, the one play where he didn't line up on the ball, and the entire thing got called back. But it's pretty exciting to see that we have like a true, I guess you could say he's number 2 on this team with Cager, but a true number 1 receiver, and someone we can kind of rely on. I'm a little worried, with this game at Auburn, a lot on the line for him. You know, it's a team that he was committed to for over 2 years. So hopefully he can keep his emotions in check. But really encouraged from what I saw from him. And
Yeah. I do like that because a lot of the stuff that's gone wrong with the offense this year has been little details, like Tyler said, but where we're not executing. Like the guys aren't holding their blocks. Jake Fromm is overthrowing guys or underthrowing guys or whatever. But the Pickens thing was purely procedural. So that's something that I feel pretty comfortable he'll never do that again because he's never going to forget how crappy that probably felt to get a 60-yard touchdown at home callback. So it's what we were talking about it last night. Actually, is the offense it's so close to clicking, but so that's the positive side of it, and the negative side is, but it's week 9. I mean, at what point are we who we are? You know, like if it hasn't clicked in 9 weeks, who's to say it's going to click in 10? So, but then maybe it will, and I'll sound dumb saying that. So I think it's just something to keep our eye on going forward because we are small details away from multiple games turning into pretty big blowouts.
Right. Well, just to kind of, refresh our minds on what the stat line was, I always like to look at those kind of things. Jake Fromm was 13 of 29 with 173 yards and 2 touchdowns. They did get 1 sack with a QBR of 117. D Swift, 12 rushes, 83 yards, a 6.9 average.
nice.
Then Brian Arian with 10 rushes, 42 yards, a 4.2 average. Cager, 6 receptions, 93 yards. Pickens, 5 receptions, 67 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So, not the great, sexy numbers we want to see.
Yeah. One thing I'd say, though, is through no fault of Fromm's at all, he was, one mistake by Pickens away from having 240-ish yards and 3 touchdowns, which it wouldn't have done much for his completion percentage. That was really low compared to what we're seeing out of him. But I think realistically, in terms of talking about the performance he had, you could give him credit for like 240 and 3 touchdowns.
Right.
Which I'm sure there's quarterbacks every week of every team that gets stuff called back. So maybe that's just lazy or wishful thinking on my part. But
yeah, I mean to that point also, as far as looking at yards on the defense and how that can even get even better, you'll notice in that last drive where we had the scrubs in and then they got down to the goal line. And Kirby just wholesale changes, puts the starters back in to keep the goose egg, which is very reminiscent. He didn't do it, but it's very reminiscent of the Mississippi State game in 2017.
Yep.
But he left the second string defense in there to prevent the score from happening, which was fun. But that was kind of fun to see and to preserve the no rushing touchdowns through 9 weeks. So that was fun. But
that's a fun stat. I feel like it's going to end this week.
It might. It will end. So you have to get ready for that. But regardless, it just feels great. I mean, even if you allow one rushing touchdown for the rest of the season, to allow 6 or 7 on a whole season is pretty incredible. But all that to say, that last drive was, I think, 76 yards of Missouri's total 198 yards of offense. So that's even – we're playing prevent defense at that point. We're allowing them to come down, waste time. That just gives them yards and easy completion. So that even helps pad their stats and I guess another way to strengthen some stuff that's not going to show up on the stat sheet, I guess, per se, there for our defense. So just take really good, confidence. You can have really good confidence in that their offensive numbers weren't as good as they probably should have been, I guess, is a way to say that. Our defensive numbers could have been better. So that's another thing I guess kind of observed and read as well, just kind of seeing where all those numbers and all these stats that we're getting into, how that plays in our defense's favor.
Right. Well, I mean, I do want to kind of touch on, it does seem like we're a tad on the more somber side as we have this, kind of opening conversation. I mean, we are, and Tyler, you spoke on this yesterday, I think, when we were talking on the phone. We're still beating Missouri, which is a team that had a chance, if they kind of ran the table, to win the East. We're still beating Missouri 27-0. And there's significance in that. I mean, I think that's just, I don't know if you wanted to kind of touch on.
I guess.
I want to win every SEC East game 50-0.
Well, it is.
Or else I'm mad at Kirby.
And it's funny, too. I mean, I think it's the same with Kentucky and Missouri. They're both shutouts in your own division in the SEC. It's harder to shut out anybody in this conference, right? And with who we play. In any conference, really. Just to have 0 points of the way college football trends nowadays, that is a very difficult thing to do. But, I mean, I forgot where I was going with that already.
It's just definitely impressive. Our defense is definitely playing really well, even our backups. Whereas I feel like last year, even 2 years ago, even 17, we gave up kind of some garbage time touchdowns kind of late in games, and it seems like even that just kind of shows our depth, how much we've improved. We've got guys.
We don't have a true liability anywhere on the defense. Like most teams, I feel like that we play. Kirby's good at game planning around figure out where their weaknesses are and exploit that. And I don't know that we have. I mean, we've had Richard LeCount get beat on some double moves deep, but that hasn't
Seems to have
happened since the
corrected that,
Tennessee
yeah.
game. I think if depending on the guys we cycle in at star, some are better suited to stop the run, some are better suited in coverage. So you can exploit that if you have a good play caller that can call based on the personnel on the field.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any one thing that it's like, this is a giant hole in our defense. So if they get to, like last year was inside linebacker. Like if they got to the second level, they were getting like 11.
I felt like it was interesting that we had Tyreek Stevenson in there.
Dude, he looked great.
He looked good.
In coverage, he was incredible.
Against Albert O, and that was the matchup they were trying to he's a bigger guy, and he's able to match up against a bigger tight end. So I thought that was a good matchup that worked in our favor in that game. And it'll be interesting to see, how much he plays against Auburn. I think he'll have a big role again.
Yeah, he looked really good. And then I thought Mark Webb, who I guess was playing in for injured Devon Wilson at the star position, he's still the edge very well. If you go back and see some of those, I know some of the premium stuff we subscribe to will break down some film, and watching him on the defense and still the edge, which really allows the guys like Jordan Davis, Malik Herring, those guys on the inside really make our havoc, or I guess those negative plays show up, was very exciting to see where that assist comes from. Like that stealing the edge doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but it's just huge to show how fast and how much speed we have on that defense. That keeps that play where all the trash is in the middle of the field, which gives us a chance to make those, to give them a lot of second and long, third and longs. Back to Brent's point, though, about us kind of being somber, I guess, now that I've recollected my thoughts. It's been a while since I've been on the podcast. You have to forgive me.
You're getting rusty.
Yeah. But yeah, people are kind of somber about, we're only beating Kentucky 21-0. We're only beating Missouri 27-0. And I understand there's points left on the field. That feels aggravating, but I thought people would be more excited randomly if we won 37-10 because we scored more points. And I think if you look across the landscape of college football, it's easy to look and say, okay, I want that for my offense when I see LSU, when I see Ohio State, when you see Clemson. And I understand that, but I don't care about what they look like. Yes, you want that. I would be wrong to say I don't, but I guess no, based on what we have recruited and what we have, I do expect to see a greater output offensively, So I understand being frustrated, but to Brent's point, winning 27-0 is still a huge success. I was a little upset. I was happy after the game. Probably that Sunday I didn't read much, and Monday kind of went by. Still didn't read too much after it. And I was kind of getting in my own head about, all these other offenses do look great, but then you go back and watch some of the film, watch some of the tape, and just watch some of the highlights and see the little things that kept us from scoring. That gave me a lot more confidence that our best game is ahead of us. And I would just say to other fans, don't worry about what LSU looks like and if and when we meet them in Atlanta. We do have our best game in front of us. We can, at least. We may never get it. We're going to have to get it if we want to win. But don't worry about what they look like. Just know that we've recruited well enough to have that on our own and have it look the way we need it to look. And I think we correct a few of those things, and you'll definitely be happy if we win, 34-0. That's the one funny thing is fans were fickle. We win 27-0. It's like, offense didn't score that much. You get that one touchdown to Stan versus George Pickens. You win 34-0. We're amazing. We look incredible. It's another 60, 70 yards, another touchdown. It's a fickle thing. So that's just
highlight.
Yeah. So and I get it. You want to see that because you want to take those chances when you get them because you're only going to play better defenses in Auburn, maybe against LSU. But be happy, enjoy it. I've had to learn. I've had to slow down myself because I think we all came in with big expectations. I know Jimmy and I were up here early in the season pumping the offensive line, like most everyone was anyway that was doing this for a living, that gets paid for their opinion, very high on our offensive line. And because we haven't gotten that, and because we got punched in the mouth with South Carolina in an ugly game versus Kentucky, we've kind of reset what we expect, which is kind of nice. And now it just sounds like we're all somber and, okay. But enjoy it. We definitely should be enjoying and laughing and drinking and partying, hooting and hollering to all this stuff.
Be definitely drinking for the dogs.
It is fun.
I think we will see a more exciting offensive game plan when we get to, assuming we win the SEC, when we get to LSU because I'm sorry, it's win the SEC East, get to the SEC championship because I think Kirby he's so conservative that he tends to build our offensive game plan around what he thinks the other team can do to us defensively, or what their offense will do against our defense. So I think we went into Missouri being like they're not going to score 10 points against us, so 13 points wins the game. So, our whole offense was built around conservatively, slowly getting to 13 points. Whereas I think, assuming it's LSU, we see in the SEC championship, whether or not it's going to work, I think that Kirby is self-aware enough to be like, they're going to score 24. They're going to score 27. Like, as good as our defense is, their offense is that good. So we need. It's like he has a magic number in mind for each game, and then tailors the play calling to fit that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we come out slinging the ball against us. We got to get there first. We got to beat Auburn.
Right.
And I feel like, I think Kirby has so much faith in Rodrigo that like some plays he probably could go for it. He just feels like we're gonna get the easy 3, and especially against a team like Missouri, it's like, if we score over 10 points, we're gonna win the game, and another 3 adds on to that. So
Yeah, Kirby's ideal game is 3-0.
yeah,
Hold the other team to like 12 yards of offense.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Tyler, you spoke on, speaking on the offensive line earlier this season, and I actually went back today and re-listened to the preseason episode and our buy or sell, or not our, y'all's buy or sell episode.
Full of freezing cold takes about the offense.
And it's really fun to kind of go back and listen to you guys and listen to y'all's cadence and everything, and just kind of how excited you guys are about certain aspects, and how
we were so young.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun. So if you have a chance to kind of, I know y'all might go back, maybe not. But anyway, so the first buy or sell that you guys had was Jake Fromm, 3,000 plus yards on the season. What he actually has at this point, or this juncture, is 1,858 points. Or not points, yards, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, offenses.
So he only needs to average 400
So
a
he needs
week.
to average 400 a week.
Could happen. The offense could click at any time.
Now, that being said, Jimmy and Tyler, you guys both sold this. So you did not think that he would have more than 3,000. Will bought it. So he's not here to, what an idiot. But anyways, he's not here to defend himself. But
He's down under.
yeah, so there's that one. Then our next one was a receiver over 1,000 yards.
This was done by me. I tried to make it fun.
Tyler trying to make it fun. He bought it, and his big receiver that he pointed out specifically was D-Rob.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
the direct quote that he said right after Robertson was, "He can get that yak."
Damn. give it to him underneath, let him go.
Right.
Just listen, let's implement that in the game plan.
He hasn't really gotten that many targets.
Coley's a
though.
listener,
So-
but he must have skipped that episode.
I will say after to that point, I was feeling pretty good about that because I remember buying that because of the Vanderbilt game. He was so involved so quick, and I think he got 4 targets right off the bat, like the first 4 targets for the
true.
D-Rob. I was like, here we go.
Now, Jimmy, sorry, Cole. Jimmy, you sold, but you did say, I do believe we will end up having 2 receivers with 1,000 yards combined, which you said, obviously makes sense, but you were kind of getting at.
Yeah, like one guy's first half and one guy's second half.
Exactly.
I thought that Tyler Simmons would pace us for the beginning of the season.
Well,
Whoops.
just to kind of give you guys an idea, Cager has 470 yards on the year. It's just comical to me. Pickens has 389 yards, and Robertson has 229 yards on
So
the season.
we literally might not have 2 receivers combined for 1,000 yards.
I think we'll have 2.
I think
we'll
we
get
will
2
eventually.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think Pickens and
I think
Cager.
Cager.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Those are
Pickens,
pretty safe
I
at
think
this point.
Pickens is coming on. We'll see. He has to string it together 2 weeks in a row, and if any week, like Cole said, being a hometown kid playing, I guess hometown, he played at Hoover for high school. But if he is coming on like he just did versus Missouri and remove that little mistake, and pair that with Cager, the offense is really gonna give some people something to worry about and open up the run game. So a lot of not a beneficial there if he starts to click. I just want to see him do it for a couple of games because if you look just one game back at Florida, 1 reception, 4 yards. So I think he obviously has it, but if he's starting to trend now that maybe that was his game. Missouri was like I can do this. I'm just going to be the man.
Yeah.
Pair that with a healthy Cager, hopefully. That could be exciting. I think we can. I think we'll definitely end up with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next one was running backs. The question there was also ambitious. Are there 2 running backs over 1,000 yards each? And
I don't remember my answer.
Jimmy and Tyler, you guys actually both sold.
Okay.
Just to give you an idea, Swift at this juncture has 921 total yards, and Harrion has 366 total yards on the season. A direct quote from Jimmy from that day was definitely over 1,000. I think 1,400 for Swift and 750 for Zeus and Brian Harrion together. or each.
Each. Okay, Jimmy, easy.
Hot take.
Bump those
I
brakes.
was like, when you
brother.
said together, I was like, oh, pretty
Well,
No, each.
I think we had our offensive line. We thought our offensive line was who they thought they were,
yeah.
and they're not.
They're not.
At
You
least
let 'em off
not
the hook.
yet. Not yet.
The next one, we're almost done here. Then we'll move on to Auburn here. But the next one was the sack total, over under 35, or I guess buying was over 35, selling was under. Tyler, you sold. Your quote was about 30. You thought we'd get about 30 on the year. Jimmy, you bought it. And the two people you named were Adam Anderson and Nolan Smith.
Jimmy doubling down.
Aziz, I know you're a listener, so I apologize for not believing in you. It's always tricky when they're coming off an ACL, but I was wrong.
Our actual is 20 sacks on the year, which actually, to be honest, kind of surprised me a little bit. At
Is
that
low
number.
or high?
As higher than I thought. I mean, we need 4 more to get our total from last year.
We'll get that
We'll get that for sure.
because we play Tech.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just, but then, Jimmy, you followed up your buy by saying your sack leader was going to be Aziz, which I thought was kind of funny. But
That doesn't make any sense.
I know. It was in there. I listened.
Okay.
And then the last one that I'll add in here is kind of at the end of it, we were kind of joking about the offense and everything. And Jimmy, a direct quote was, you're like, yeah, I'm sure you go. I'm sure at the end, Jake Fromm will have 5,400 pass yards, and we'll be all like, huh. Look at that.
Nope.
5,400. Maybe
It's going to be like his career.
maybe in his
numbers.
career.
So it just, I mean, you said it jokingly and you laughed after it, but it just was a funny comment that I now laugh at. But not trying to
Jesus, I feel like I'm on 60 Minutes. Back in February of 2013.
I'm not trying
pulling
to
up tweets from when I was in high school.
I'm not trying to cast like aspersions or anything towards you guys, but I thought it was pretty funny.
So we were all
We'll
a
be
little
sure to,
too high on the offense.
we'll be sure to have
But
Brent
we
on
were-
this year's buy sell. This next year's buy sell.
Yeah, you can't be wrong if you don't have an opinion. But
Yeah.
anyways,
You missed the part where I predicted Minnesota would be 9-0 from that episode.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a thing that happened. So don't go back and listen to that episode. Just take my word for it.
But anyways, well, moving forward, obviously we have Auburn. They are 7-2 at this juncture, right? Yeah,
Florida and
7-2.
LSU.
Oh yeah, okay.
2 losses.
And then do we know what the spread is for that?
I believe it's Georgia 2.5 at this
Okay.
time. So Vegas is saying we're roughly 6 points better than them. Because
You get
the
3
rule of thumb is 3 points for being at home. You could argue Jordan Hare should get more than that when that stadium
sure.
is into it.
Right,
They
right.
get
Any game
pretty
after
rocking. I
any
don't
game
know what
after
the-
noon in Jordan Harris.
Yeah, that's what we were joking last night. We're like, if we could somehow petition this game to be played at 8 a.m., I would be like, "Yep, let's do it." But
Well,
what do you guys? What is the pulse on the Auburn fan base? Because I mean, they had everything in front of them in 2017 when they killed us, but now they're pretty firmly out of the playoff picture.
I feel like they're kind
Dude.
of confident just because of the history, especially with us going 0-3 against SEC West opponents. The kind of the guys I've talked to kind of feel good about beating us, but I mean,
Gus Malzahn's also 9-0 on a bye week.
I
He's
don't
never
don't
lost
like that. I
on a
don't
bye
like
week.
that statistic.
Yeah. Well, to
that's
kind
spooky.
of give us a direction here, what are some of the key matchups that each of you guys are going to be looking at throughout this game?
So I think the biggest matchup is going to be our offensive line versus their defensive line, which is kind of a no-brainer. But I think it's as much as we rag on our offensive line, it's because we had out of these world expectations. So they haven't been the greatest of all time. They've only been very, very good, and that's been disappointing to us. But at the end of the day, they are very good, especially in pass protection. So I think the biggest thing will be if Auburn can get pressure on Jake Fromm in obvious passing situations without blitzing, if they can send 4 and drop 7 and our O-line is not able to handle that, it's going to be a really long day. But when you blitz Jake Fromm, he's so good at knowing how to get rid of the ball quickly, and his stats against Grantham in his years at Florida, or his 2 years at Florida and 1 year at Mississippi State, kind of speak to that. So I think that Fromm can be pretty lethal when a team tries to blitz or anything like that. But when they can get pressure with their 4, I mean, any quarterback is going to struggle because then at that point you've got more guys playing defense than you have playing offense past the line of scrimmage. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest one for me. I think that if we, in obvious passing situations, if we can handle their front 4 to give Fromm time, and if they start having to send an extra guy, I think that could kind of turn the tide of the game. I'm not I don't think we're going to be able to run that well on them. I'm not expecting a breakout game out of Swift or anything like that. I think that their run defense is pretty good, and then our offensive line and run blocking has not been as good as in pass blocking. So.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to pick something, I think Jimmy's one's probably the biggest one, but another big emphasis I think is going to be on our ability to stop the pass, because I think that's probably an area of our defense that has had some struggles. We've given, I think rushing, we've only given up 78 yards a game, so I feel pretty good there. And I don't think they're going to run the ball all over us, but I think if Bo Nix can find some confidence, and he's got some good receivers. He's got Seth Williams, who's a big target, and they have Anthony Schwartz, who's one of the fastest players in the entire country. So if we can kind of shut those guys down, I'll feel a lot better about if our secondary, guys like Tyson Campbell, Eric Stokes, it's gonna be on them to really step up. And Seth Williams is a big matchup, and it's gonna be tough for anyone to stop him. But I think if we can basically try to force them to run up the middle, I think we're gonna have good success. But I think our weakness basically on defense is our passing, our ability to stop the pass, and we've kind of given up some chunk yardage in the previous game. So that's would be my biggest concern, and something I'm looking at.
Yeah, that's big. I think I was looking at Bo Nix's stats. I mean, he's kind of known right now for being turnover happy, and really his turnovers are coming over in bunches. If you look at his interceptions, I think he's thrown 6 on the year, which isn't too many for a true freshman. He threw 2 versus Oregon in his first college game ever. Threw then 3 4 or 5 weeks later versus Florida.
6 interceptions.
So 2 versus Oregon, 3 versus Florida, and then 1 versus LSU. So they seem to have come in bunches, kind of like Fromm's only 3 in the year came in 1 game. People could watch that game and think, Georgia may be turnover happy if you get pressure on Fromm. Not really the case, as we just pointed out. Versus Florida and blitz happy teams, we seem to perform at a high clip there. But I think will be by far the best defense that Auburn's played, and then will be by far the hardest team they've played at home. So while their stats look good at home, I don't know. I guess I agree. No one's going to run on us, but I can see us getting after Nick's a pretty good bit, because our defensive line is becoming on very strong, like a front rotation of 6 is playing really well. He can move, but he is a freshman. And I guess their offensive line isn't necessarily known for being the greatest. So, I mean, with us, the way our defensive line is trending on those trenches, I can really see us kind of flipping the narrative there and putting him in a bad situation to really make our defense feast and hopefully get some turnovers there, because I think that's where we're really going to get the flip the field position. Because what does scare me is, let's say we don't run on them very much. We're having to punt the ball a lot, then you're putting the ball in Camarda's hands. And I think we've seen, as Jimmy said famously, I always like to reference it, he gets the yips when it matters. And in a big game, in an environment like that, I really don't want to leave it in Camarda's hands to flip the field. I trust our defense wholeheartedly, as we should at this point. I guess don't trust Camarda to flip the field consistently to allow our defense to be on the field more than it has to be all game long in a raucous environment. So Camarda makes me a little nervous. I'm really hoping pressure on Nix turns into some favorable field position for us based on turnovers. So we'll see. Again, I don't think he turns over as much as we might have a feeling that he does. Again, it was for some of the better defenses they've already played in neutral sites and on the road. So we'll see how that performs. But I guess I'm really encouraged by how our defensive line is trending to flip that for us. So.
Yeah.
So would you guys say there's like like I referenced earlier, if Kirby has a magic number in his mind of saying we need to build the offensive game plan, assuming no turnovers, because obviously you don't want to game plan around your own team giving the ball away. So no turnovers, no pick six, no goofy special team scores. What would y'all say is like the magic number that we need to win? If we score
more than Auburn. You mean?
Yeah.
What is Auburn going to score?
The magic number is more points than Auburn scores.
Well,
but like if there's a number to say, we feel confident that our defense will hold them under
20.
X, so we need X plus 1. You said 20.
20 is mine.
20 points that they'll score.
I don't see them scoring 20.
Yeah, I'd say it's
I'd say
closer
17 to 20. Yeah,
I'd say 14 to 17.
See, I was going to say 10
Wow.
or 13.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Well,
I could see a 17-13 type game if Camarda has a halfway decent game, because it's the kind of game where field position turning into layup
huge.
field goals, I mean, can decide the game.
Yeah.
And
that was my biggest point, I guess, is that's what makes it scary, is you give them favorable field position to get 3 or 4 chip shots in there as field goals. It really makes it tough on your offense. in that environment versus a very good, front four, front seven on their defense. But I guess 10 to 13, I know that might sound a little homerish, but I guess look at what we've done, and their offense isn't necessarily trending. I mean, they just beat Ole Miss by 26 to 20. They were, what was it? They lost to LSU 23 to 20. LSU's defense, while good, is not what our defense is. I mean, look at all their other games versus Texas.
That's actually a very good
Bama,
point.
Like they get into some shootouts.
Yeah.
And we have a hellacious defense comparatively, I would say. So just how much they struggle to move the ball versus them, I see us being and especially we're a lot more mature now. Granted they are as well in their offensive plan, as much as we are more mature in our defensive plan and scheme at this point. But again, I just think back to the way we were trending, how we're playing, what's in front of us, and I mean, I don't know how much this goes into the X's and O's of things, which I guess it doesn't at all. But as far as the emotion, the guys that were on that team in 2017, they want this. They are focused. I do hate that Auburn, as the 5th team on this schedule, to have a bye week before us. Florida's one of those, so that's kind of a
Tennessee
wash.
was too, and we had a bye before Tennessee.
Tennessee's a joke anyway. They're irrelevant.
Does Texas A&M have a bye week right now? Are we going to face them after?
Gosh,
I can check.
I think Auburn was the last of the 5th, so I don't
think
like
Auburn
that.
was the last one.
Okay.
But I guess that I don't know. I don't know how much that counts for. But like I said a few episodes ago, this is some of the last games for some of these guys in a red and black uniform, and for what's at stake, and for the memories of that game in 2017, and getting a chance to kind of get them back there at their own house. I like that emotionally charged, just selfishly for us. This manufactured pressure for us that Kirby seems to be pretty good at of late, of us versus the world. They don't respect you. I don't care if you're favored.
Yeah.
No one respects you. So I kind of like the
A&M
edge.
is playing South Carolina this week.
One thing I do
so
want
they are on
It's
a
a
bye.
night game also, which is a little bit that's helpful for us.
One thing I
Four less
do want to
hours.
bring up is DeAndre Swift is an Auburn killer. Like in his history against Auburn,
Yeah.
is very strong.
True.
Very strong. I mean, the guy had the finisher in the SEC championship, and had a dagger of a run last year.
Good point.
He
So
puts it on ice. Yeah.
I'm not. I think he's maybe struggled in the first half to kind of get it going, but I could see him getting one in the second half, kind of blowing wide open. So
I hope so. I hope
look out
I'm-
for that.
I hope I'm wrong about that. I think if we do it, it'll be to the edge. I don't know that I'd trust our interior line to get any push against Derek Brown.
I was going to say, with the injuries to the offensive line, I know they say Trey Hill's going to play, but he's not 100%, and we haven't been too impressed with him at center as
It's
it is.
odd to me. Brent and I were talking about that. It sounds like there is an 80% Trey Hill better than 100% Cade Mays or Jamari Sawyer. I mean,
At
we're
center.
not. At center specifically. We're not at practice every day, but maybe continuity matters so much at center. But I mean, to me, like when you look at his play over the course of the year, it seems like Trey Hill would have. You'd say he's the closest starter to losing his job. I guess Cleveland, because Cleveland and Mays have gone back and forth all year, anyways, at right guard. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't be terribly upset or worried if we trotted a different center out there on Saturday.
Cade or Jamar Sawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to say that. I mean, it does worry me. It can't be an excuse. If you're going to play and suit up, you got to play. And they're dealing with injuries too. They're going to have players that can say, well, our safety or cornerback or whoever the hell it could be is a little dinged up. They're going to have their own deficiencies because of injuries. Everyone does at this point. So I don't want to lean on that at all. It's not an excuse. It just or cause for concern, something to look out for. If we start off early and get in a hole with some bad sacks like hell versus Florida, I think we put. Was it Cade Mays or Ben Cleveland in there on the end? And it was the second snap of the game. They knifed right through and hit Swift right in the face, right as he was getting the ball handed off to them. So stuff like that, I really don't want to turn it into a snowball effect because that stadium and that team seems to do that to us when it gets rolling. So, it'll be curious to see.
That's a good point, too, is that it's really hard to play from behind the way we're built and at that stadium.
We haven't yet. I'll be actually I don't want to see it, but I would be curious if we get in a position. Obviously, we have to. So I'd be curious to see how our offense responds. Because like Jake, we've seen us when we have to go into the 2-minute drill. We move. We're efficient.
Yeah.
And Fromm is amazing in making those checks and calls. It would be curious to see us kind of be pressed into. If we have to score, what does the offense look like then? When the sense of urgency is there, do we turn into that killer that we think we can be?
I'd rather see us play from ahead. Always. I'd rather see us in 2-minute
Me
drill
too.
when
I
we're
think-
up 17-3, trying to go up 24-3 as the half ends or whatever.
Well, speaking on, we spoke about Hill's injury. Can you guys shed some light on what you've read regarding? Because I know a lot of Georgia fans were concerned with how few players were out there kind of in during that Missouri game. Who should we expect of the starters to be out there?
So Trey's going to play, but not at 100%. We've read Cager should play.
He'll play. Yep. They say Cager's is a dislocated shoulder. I guess they can pop it back in or whatever that is, and then a cortisone shot, I guess. The way they describe that injury, he will play. They say it's once it's done and it's healed up, he feels fine. It's just once he gets hit again. It's like playing with glass. Your best player is one hit away from coming out for that game or for a quarter until it feels normal again. Then there's no side effects or lingering effects until he lands on it or gets hit again. So that's basically how they're describing it as far as he can go every week. It's going to be nagging until I guess he has an off season's worth of time to.
It'd be nice if we can close out with Auburn and A&M. It'd be nice to maybe sit him in the Tech game.
Yeah,
but that's
for sure.
That's down the road.
Right.
Solomon Kinley's not 100%, but he hasn't really missed any time. But I guess he's been favoring his ankle a little bit. So that's that interior offensive line we keep referencing. Derek Brown, he's Auburn's defensive tackle. He's probably gonna be a top 5 pick. He's from the state of Georgia. He's a pretty good football player.
And Marlon Davidson, they're number 3. But also Isaiah Wilson went down. But Isaiah Wilson, he's going to play. They're all coming back.
Yeah.
Or Isaiah Wilson actually went back in late in the Missouri game. But I guess just blanket, they're all going to play. They're all going to come back. I guess the most tender one would be Hill, a center, which is a little scary. And then I would say Cager, just because of what he means and how quickly that can turn. I mean, one quick catch in the game and one pop against that left shoulder, and then he could disappear until we absolutely need him, let's say, in the third or fourth. So that could be that just changes the complexion of our offense. So those two are the ones I'd be the most concerned about as far as how our offense shapes out throughout the day.
Right.
With their lingering stuff.
Well, anything else that we want to speak on regarding the Auburn game, or do we want to move on with the college football playoff?
Let's do predictions.
Scores and players.
Predictions, of course. Cole, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll lead off. I'm seeing this obviously a very, very low scoring game, kind of like Vegas is seeing it. I think Georgia's going to win 21-13. Going to hold them to a touchdown, 2 field goals. And I think player of the game is going to be Jake Fromm. He's going to make just enough throws to, keep Auburn's defense honest. And that's what we're going to have to do. I mean, that's probably the weakness, I guess, of Auburn's defense. So just being able to make some throws, getting, Cager involved. Hopefully he's healthy enough to go, and then just finding Pickens and just the other weapons we have. Swift out of the backfield. I feel good.
Sure, that's nice. 21-13. I like that. I do. I mean, that's a very entertaining game for sure. I've struggled with and going back and forth. Does Auburn get a touchdown? If they're at home, I feel like they're absolutely capable. They have a somewhat quirky offense, like to play on the perimeter. We've tackled well on the perimeter, it appears. We don't want to give up the explosive play. Haven't done that in a while. It seemed like we gave up 1 a game early in the season. We seem to have corrected those. But I'm going to go in 20-6. Just with the way our defense is trending, I don't see them scoring a touch. I mean, I guess I want to keep running with that, and I just don't see Bo Nix turning it on versus the best defense he's going to see with the way we're moving. And offensive side of the ball, I want to go with the MVP, but just to be contrarian and fun, I'm going to go Nolan Smith as my player of the game. Maybe not MVP, but I guess Nolan Smith played great versus Missouri. He's starting to get back in the backfield. He's mobile, and against a quarterback like Bo Nix who can beat you with his feet. I'd like to see Nolan Smith getting after him and maybe forcing that kid into having to be creative on the perimeter and forcing something up or causing an interception to happen or getting a fumble and making him, fool around with the ball. So I'm going to go Nolan Smith as my player of the game and 20-6, Dogs on top.
All right, so I would say for the most part, this game is a really good, an interesting matchup, even if you're not a fan of one team or the other. It'd be fun to watch because it's strength on strength of multiple good units. So when teams are matched that closely, I think it comes down to quarterback play, and I trust Fromm more than I trust Nix. So I'm going to go 20-10. I think it's going to be a really close game. I think our offense is going to be pretty conservative. I think there's going to be a point where it's like 13-10 or maybe 13-3 and they score later or whatever, and my player of the game is going to be J.R. Reed with a pick 6.
Oh, that'd be sexy.
Yeah,
Nice.
freshman Bo Nix is going to show up in the second half.
Okay.
With Nolan Smith forcing it.
Oh, yeah, obviously. Nolan Smith lead blocking, I can remember the time.
But I think I'm going to go 30-10.
30.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Dogs?
come out.
Dogs?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like, no, Auburn.
I'm sorry. But
30 to 10.
I'm going to come out strong. I think we're going to get that 0-3 SEC West road monkey off our back finally. And, you know, I think
we would have got it last year if we had not canceled the LSU game. I think.
Right,
That's true.
right,
I
right.
maintain that.
Of course. But yeah, I think Jake has a good game. I think our player of the game is going to be D Swift, that Auburn killer, Tiger killer. The poachers are after him. Well, no, he is a poacher. I'm sorry. But anyways.
Getting our metaphors mixed up here.
yeah. But anyways, well, in the honor of Disney Plus, let's get down to the bare necessities with the college football playoff.
Very nice.
You know, just kind of let it go and see what we get during this conversation. But anyways, so moving on to the college football playoff, obviously another week of released rankings. We have at number 1, LSU, number 2, Ohio State, number 3, Clemson. So those are the, you know, obviously the top 3 undefeateds there. First one loss is ourselves, University of Georgia, and then
Ew.
number 5 at the University of Alabama. Number 6, Oregon. 7, Utah. 8, Minnesota. 9, Penn State. 10, Oklahoma. And then Baylor, 9-0, still 13. So they're still outside the top 10, even though they're undefeated. So, you know, any surprises that you guys want to speak on? Are you guys truly surprised that Georgia was able to hop Alabama with the 4-5, or you guys want to speak on that at all?
No, I wasn't terribly surprised. One thing, I mean, I see the argument of our loss is to South Carolina, which is objectively a worse loss than losing to LSU. But the thing is that Bama hasn't really beaten anybody. At this point, they're 0-1 against ranked teams. I think the committee is putting a good bit of emphasis on who you have beaten more so than who you've lost to, which I feel like is fair
it should be.
as a one-loss team because it benefits me. So that's what I want them to do. But I feel like these are college kids who are not going to show up to play 100% every single week. So you're going to have fluky games like that. So to me, I'd put more emphasis on that. And I think it's good that Bama is being punished for, you know, if you're going to schedule Duke and call it your big-time Power 5 game, then you better go undefeated because,
Right.
you know, we played
100%.
Notre Dame. You played Duke.
Yeah.
I feel like that's fair. I think Minnesota's ranked too low. I'm on the Minnesota train right now.
Yeah.
That'll all take care of itself. If they go undefeated, they're in. If they lose a game, they're out. They're just like Georgia, so none of this
And the
technically matters. But I think they should be ranked higher based on their body of work right now.
In the history of the college football playoff rankings, no team has jumped more than 6 spots into the top 10 in the history of their rankings, and Minnesota jumped 9. So
Nice.
that's a new
Breaking
precedent.
trends this year.
Yeah,
Good. We need
that was set. But if any more speaking on that at all?
I think Jimmy nailed it on the head. I mean, I think it's obvious. I mean, we get into who lost to who, which is such a funny way. I mean, even though, yes, it does benefit us this year, this is super encouraging because of who Georgia has scheduled with Notre Dame, who we are scheduling with Texas, Oklahoma. We are showing that, look, we're going to play, and we're not going to have this be a part of our discussion. We're going to beat somebody. We may have an ugly loss. Most people do have a loss. I don't care if it's the number 1 LSU or to South Carolina. Who have you beaten? That's how it's always going to be. Have I beaten the best that I have to play against? You know, and if you lose to them, then that's still, you never want to lose, but that is still okay. They scheduled them out there and played. You know. So with Bama not having anyone else in the schedule aside from Auburn, and if we beat Auburn, then that just diminishes it, you know, then so did we. So then what's their argument to jump us, you know? So it really, there's no favoring Bama unless Auburn beats us, which is just kind of a funny, sweet universe to live in, to watch Alabama have to pull for Auburn. So that's just kind of funny to me. But yeah, I mean, I think I have no qualms with us being over Alabama for that reason. But yeah, I agree with Jimmy. I think in that same vein, if they're gonna weigh so heavily on who you've beaten, Minnesota, you know, has to be higher because I mean we're getting here at 3 weeks. It'll sort itself out. They might play Ohio State or Penn State. I guess I don't know how the divisions line up in the Big Ten championship. Right. So it'll all sort itself out. And that's the thing is, it's fun to talk about, but whenever I don't even pay attention to the rankings when they release them. I'll see it. And I text the guys. I said number 3. We're actually number 4. But really, like it doesn't matter. We have to win. We've always had to win out.
Yeah.
It's oddly enough, if we haven't lost, I would say it matters more because then we're thinking, okay, where's our error? Where's our margin of error if we do lose in the SEC championship game? How can we justify? Now it's just straightforward, it's simple.
Right.
You know, we got to win and we're in. It doesn't matter for 3, 5, 6, 11, 10. We're going to get in if we win out the rest of the games just because of Auburn, LSU, Tech. I mean, hell, powerhouse there. So
Powerhouse. I would definitely say, I was a little bit surprised just because, I just kind of, the national narrative is that, Alabama, they lost to a number one team, to LSU, and then we lost to an unranked South Carolina team. But then when you kind of break it down and look at it all, big picture, you kind of see obviously we have way better wins, and we lost in double overtime to South Carolina with 4 turnovers. So I guess the committee kind of excused that a little bit more than, for example, Ohio State last year lost by 29 points to Purdue and got very penalized for it, and we didn't really get that same, we didn't get penalized nearly the same level, but we also lost in overtime. They lost by 29 points, so it is a bit different there. I think Minnesota's. I think they could be up, maybe a few spots in the rankings, but I think it's almost fair where they're at. They almost lost to Georgia Southern early in the season. I don't know if you guys knew that. 35-32 was the final, but
Okay.
So they're a good team. They're kind of peaking right now, it seems like. So they started the season slow, but it'll be interesting to see how they finish, though.
Yeah, I feel.
Well,
I
I was gonna say
I don't trust them to win the Big Ten. Or
definitely don't
anything.
trust
I don't
them to
either.
win.
But for argument's sake, this is why this is fun. I would say then you would have to move Clemson way down and put them above Clemson because Clemson almost lost to
North
UNC,
Carolina.
and they haven't played a lesser schedule than what Minnesota's played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Big facts, big brain energy.
You could say it's a whole new world out there with Bama
No,
outside
it's
the
just
top
fun.
4.
It's fun. It is. I love it. And I agree. It's what you do this year. And I get building a brand is important in college football, but season to season, it is kind of nice. And this is just 1 week. It can change next week. The committee has a moving target with this stuff every year, every week. But it is nice to kind of, they're penalizing Bama for playing literally nobody. And I get what he's going to say. You play who you play. That's who I have to play. And I goofed up once. And how can you tell me I'm not one of the top 4 teams?
Right.
That's a good argument because anyone in their right mind could probably say Alabama is easily a top 4 team in the country.
Oh yeah.
What I would argue is, and this goes to the expansion conversation, is rarely ever, and it hasn't been Bama, but rarely ever has a committee gotten 4 teams right. I'll say they get 3 teams right, but usually one of those semifinal matchups, whether it be Oregon, Florida State, Alabama, Clemson in 2017 in the Orange Bowl. What was it last year? Was it Notre Dame versus Clemson? There's always one that's just so lopsided and ugly that it's really not a good matchup. So they tend to get 3 right, not all 4. So I would also plug that as well, as far as there tends to be a top tier of 3 teams.
Yeah.
And then 1 additional for the sake of the playoff.
Well, hopefully our dogs can go the distance. And,
Us and the committee will see eye to eye.
win that SEC championship.
Very
But
nice,
Jimmy,
man.
Can I give you guys a?
I was about to ask you to
okay.
kind of lay that groundwork
All
for
right,
a
yeah.
chaos scenario here in
This
the
is
college
where
football playoff.
I wish we had like a visual thing like they have on TV where you can drag teams over, but waiting for that check to clear from Ed Freeman State Farm before we can buy that. But this to me is ultimate chaos. So you've got I'm just going to run it down in terms of 1 loss or undefeated teams. 12-1 LSU as the SEC runner-up, 12-0 but lose to the SEC championship. 12-1 UGA as SEC champions. 13-0 Clemson, 13-0 Ohio State, 12-1 Oklahoma or Baylor. Let's say Oklahoma. 12-1 Oregon as the Pac-12 champ. 11-1 Bama as the not even winning the SEC West.
Or division. Yeah. Okay.
And then I put 12-1 Minnesota, but to me that's a no-brainer. They're the first team out of all that. So let's say you've got 12-1 UGA in because they're not going to leave out a 1-loss SEC
Champion.
You've got 13-0 and 13-0 Clemson and Ohio State in because they're undefeated conference champs. So now you've got 1 spot left for LSU, who went undefeated in the regular season but didn't win their conference. Oklahoma, who was 11-1 with some kind of sloppy games, but did win their conference, and Oregon is the same way, 11-1 in season, lost to Auburn, who in this situation Alabama will have beat to close out the season, and then you've got who would y'all put, and then who would you think the committee would put? I guess. I know that's a lot of words. That might be hard to follow on the podcast.
Cannot.
But
It is if you're not looking at it. If you're listening to this in the car.
so basically, you've got LSU, Oklahoma, and Oregon all as 1-loss conference. 2 of them as the conference champions. LSU is not their conference champion, but they went undefeated in the regular season. And then you've got 11-1 Bama as Bama. How much Bama bump, Bama brand.
This is why I love and hate college football. I love it because it matters when you lose. when you lose late, like in the BCS, it crushed you. You could go all these wins, in the whole season. If you lost late, it typically costs you. Now, the college football playoff helps with that blow. It helps cushion that. But to me, it has to be Oregon. That's who, or I should say, has to be. That's who I would put in. That would be my vote, just because Oregon's loss was the first game of the season, neutral site, last second play. If we're going to get into how you lose, double overtime, last second touchdown, throw up from first week, then they string together 12 wins and win their conference, and that's going to be over a number 7 Utah to wrap it up at the end too. So. For me, that would be Oregon. I hate to leave LSU out because they've looked so great and so good, but Oregon's defense actually is pretty good. You get Justin Herbert there, who was kind of a Heisman hopeful and big draft. So I think they also talk about the money, and goes out of sides of X's and O's in football, but as far as the matchup and who the eyes can draw, not that Oregon's going to bring more than LSU, but I think that was just, I don't know.
So
with
I guess,
who Herbert is and with what they've done and their trending, I would put Oregon in.
Just to play the devil's advocate there, at that point you're leaving out LSU, who's 4-1 against top 10 teams, and they beat the team that is Oregon's only loss. Mm-hmm. So that's
yeah. But that's what I'm saying. When you lose matters. It's like it's unfortunate, but
there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah,
the only wrong answer is putting Bama in, because that's.
I don't think there's any way Bama.
Cole, do you have a differing?
Yeah, I'm going to go with like the general opinion, which would be that LSU would get in.
Yeah.
Just because they have such a good strength of schedule, and I mean it depends how they lose to Georgia, but I still think they're in no matter what. Like unless they get blown out or something.
Yeah,
that's the only way they're not in. But I just feel like if anything, like Clemson, if they like struggle down the stretch or something, like maybe I don't know, South Carolina, Wake Forest, whoever they have left, they would be more the questionable team to get in, but I mean they are 13 and so you really can't take a team that gets 13.
They've never left out an undefeated team.
You shouldn't. I mean,
besides UCF, but
that would be
not a Power 5 team.
No, that would be such a dangerous precedent to set. To go
no, I don't think they will. But I just
5.
think like if you're gonna,
committee is honestly probably praying that Clemson loses a game.
Yeah,
because that's an easy team to immediately.
South Carolina
eliminate.
could do it, couldn't they? I mean, couldn't they?
They've got a shot.
I mean,
giant killers.
Jimmy, on here, you don't have an undefeated Baylor.
Well, I have 12-1 Oklahoma / Baylor, and then I realized that Baylor could go undefeated. So then, I mean, if Baylor goes undefeated, they're in.
Yeah.
There's an undefeated conference champ, so that would eliminate.
Yeah.
That would eliminate all discussion, but LSU is still going to have a leg to stand on and being upset.
To me, I mean, let's just talk through that if we have a moment. Then I mean, so how it would work is LSU loses, and then the very next night they just drop 3 spots from number 1 to number 4. They lose a game, and then they get a rematch. I'm assuming rematch Georgia because we jumped to number 1 then, right? We're number 3.
I think they would leave Ohio State.
They would probably put Ohio State. I'd be probably right about that.
Joe Burrow versus
So
old
then
school would be kind of
That would be kind of fun.
storyline.
And Justin Fields versus that,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
all.
I want
stuff.
UGA to get number 3 because that would realistically put us in white jerseys for both the playoff and the championship.
we play well in white.
We play well in
did.
white. We do.
I guess to me, if I was a fan, it would be fun, and it's obviously great for the SEC to see us carry that much clout. But my gosh, if you were in another conference and watching, if that was us and we were watching the Big Ten do that, Ohio State loses that one game, but now Minnesota, by God, and Penn State or whoever the hell is, Ohio State gets to go. That would infuriate me to know that they took up 2 spots.
Right.
I mean, so many of these teams think they have a case.
That's what Brent and I were talking on the way here. We live in a world right now where if the season ended today, there'd be 2 SEC teams in the college football playoff, and neither one would be Bama.
Yeah,
It's a good world.
What a strange time to be alive.
hate to see it.
Yeah, you really hate to see it.
Hate to see
But
it.
yeah, I don't know what I would pick there over.
You got to pick.
Okay. I mean, I think I think realistically, it's coming down to assuming Baylor loses a game there. So you've got 12-1 Oregon, Oklahoma, and LSU, with UGA already having gotten a spot. I think the SEC fatigue is such that LSU without the Bama brand would get in, even though they probably would get left out, even though they probably deserve to get in. So I think I would think that it would be Oregon that would get in over Oklahoma. They have a better loss, and Oklahoma's been the last 2 or 3 years in a row and has never managed to make it to the Natty. So it's like give another team a chance, I guess. I think there's a lot of politics involved in it, even though there shouldn't be.
It would be heartbreaking to be LSU and to beat Auburn, Bama.
Yeah.
Who else? Texas. They got one more in there. They got 4 top 15.
Would Joe Burrow lose the
Florida.
Heisman because of that, maybe?
Florida. Yeah.
And then go to the SEC championship game and let's say lose by a field goal or a touchdown.
Yeah, Joe Burrow with
And
the
then not
Heisman
go.
would be a. They might try and shove LSU in there one way or another.
Put yourself in that situation.
I'd be furious. It's like you're telling me I guess played.
I have no sympathy
at
for
that
any
point-
team that gets their heart broken ever because I'm
That's
a
true.
Georgia fan.
yeah.
So
But at that point, they would have played. I'm not arguing for LSU. I'm just simply saying they would have played 5 top 15 teams and not make it and lose
Right.
one of them.
Well, moving forward, do we want to touch on Chase Young or do we want to skip to Mount Rushmore?
I'd say let's talk about Chase
You
Young.
want to talk about Chase Young?
So Chase Young, for our listeners that don't know, is defensive end at Ohio State, probably the most dominant defensive player in the country, probably going to be a top 5 pick. Allegedly accepted a loan from a family friend / NFL agent, which is not allowed.
To do what? Do you know?
No,
To
probably-
fly his girlfriend to the Rose Bowl.
Oh, really?
Is that really what it was?
Yep.
I did
And he
not read
paid it
that.
back. Obviously we know he paid it back.
paid it
right?
back.
Yeah. And then he paid it back.
I've
And
heard.
he's getting
I don't know if it's
suspended for
hearsay,
that.
but I've heard that Gurley used the money that he got in trouble for to buy his mother a new roof for her, like mobile home.
Yeah, I don't think he fed some
That's
children for during Christmas.
I really
And
think
P
that. I
Street,
don't know if
you
that's
know.
true. But anyway, so Chase Young is gonna. It came down today. He's gonna miss 2 games total. Ohio State clearly timed their announcement of this for their 2 easiest games of the season.
Maryland.
You could argue that the NCAA has like a vested interest in Ohio State staying good because they look like one of the only teams that could challenge the LSU, Bama, potentially Georgia quasi 3-headed monster of the SEC.
Subtle.
So it's what Brent and I were talking about on the way over here. I guess if Brent can expand on it anymore. Is at that point, do you hate the player or hate the game? Do you say screw you, Ohio State, for getting away with that, or do you say good for you because the NCAA is BS and Georgia should have done that in 2014? Well,
I mean, the rules are the rules. We've got bit by it. Most every other team does. You know, it bites them some way or another. I guess.
Missouri especially.
I mean, yeah, Missouri got slapped. I guess. I don't know. That it aggravates me. I mean, I don't think. I mean, to buy a flight, we're talking about a couple $100. I guess that's not too. I mean, the most 1,000. I guess. And if you paid it back, then great. That's how the real world works. And there are a lot of unfair rules with these kids. Like, you know, I saw 2 kids. This is totally off topic, but they went on the Ellen DeGeneres show. They did one of those dances on viral. It went viral. It was one of the Maryland. I'm saying
Tyler's
I'm
watching
wrapping
Ellen.
it up.
Damn, Daniel.
It was but they did one of those dances or whatever it was. 2 basketball players. They went on Ellen's show. Some other kids were on there. They went viral as well. They got like scholarships to college. The 2 Maryland kids. She even said, due to NCAA rules, I can't give you anything. So here are some boxers. She gave the kids some boxers. And I was like, how unfair. Like, what kind of world do we live in where just because I play basketball for that school, which is an incredible opportunity that most people don't get, that's great and all, but like, and I'm not a proponent of paying players, but like, how does that make sense? So I do think there's definitely some unfair rules as far as what kids cannot have access to. It's just ridiculous. But if the rules are the rules, and my God, you know,
You're saying he should have been held to a 4-game suspension like Gurley and Green?
yeah, if it's 4 games, then yes, they should just be straight 4 games. Or if they're willing
Because the AJ Green sold his jersey that he owned from
That's
a
right.
bowl game for
That's right.
$1,000
Yeah.
and missed 4
Yeah,
games.
I mean, hell, I think that was even greater because you can argue that's NCAA equipment and by extension, you know, Georgia's equipment. Whereas Todd Gurley was simply signing autographs, and there was nothing that it all belonged to him. You know, he didn't have to pay someone back. I guess he didn't have to do it to benefit. I guess he did it to benefit himself. But
his mom and her trailer park roof.
I thought you were making that up. Is that a real thing?
I choose to believe it's real.
Yeah.
I don't know. If the rules are the rules, I feel like you got to stick with them. And I think it's just ridiculous to see how it's just another case of how inconsistent the NCAA is, which angers me. Not
But
that I can do
that's the
anything
thing
about
is
it.
we've seen time and again, if you're a blue blood and the NCAA comes for you and you just be like, well, we're not going to cooperate. So, like, the court of public opinion is going to side with the school because everyone hates the NCAA. So, I don't know. You can't really blame Ohio State at that point. Yeah, I
Well, no,
almost
you
am
can't.
more frustrated at our administration for giving in so easily in 2014.
Yeah, I think the NCAA obviously wants Ohio State to be as good as possible. I mean, they're a big money draw. You know, they get a lot of viewers on TV. So, I mean, obviously they don't want one of their best players to go down for more than 2 games, and they strategically planned it. You know,
Yeah.
the worst
Maryland
the
and
worst 2
Rutgers.
possible conference games, which makes it sound not as bad. Oh, we sat out conference games. No, well, it was Maryland and Rutgers.
43.5 point favorite over
So,
Maryland.
you
I
know-
don't know what it is.
And as a Georgia fan, of course, it kind of stings a little bit. Having Gurley's Heisman campaign completely derailed due to the exact same thing. I will say, I mean, they did have a video of Gurley signing autographs. They didn't have any
It's
money.
not illegal.
They didn't have any money exchanging hands, which we could have definitely fought a little more than we did.
Yeah.
I think McGarity definitely kind of took a knee on this one and just kind of let the NCAA have its way.
Two knees.
Right.
So
Well,
What do y'all think?
What do I think?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of, I don't know. I kind of agree with Jimmy where I understand that rules are rules, but at the same token, I've always kind of, again, agreed with Jimmy about, kind of being on the side more of your player and not on the side of the NCAA, and challenging them to, find your mistake or not cooperate. I mean, I know it's not really the right way to do
It's
things.
a slimy world to live in.
It is, but I
The
mean,
NCAA is slimy.
yeah,
Yes, they are.
and two wrongs don't make a right.
Yeah.
I understand all that, but at the end of the day, what matters is, what matters is the game and having your best players out there. I understand being true to yourself and true to the game and all that, but at the end of the day, it's about W's, and if you can find a way to continue to get those wins.
Yeah, but that's just such a slimy argument, in my opinion, because then, like, what if Aaron Hernandez, you could let him go, I mean, God knows what, right? I mean,
That's a big.
it
jump.
is. It
Yeah.
is. But no, it's
We can
not.
play what
no,
if
it's not.
all day
First, they get
Yes.
$1,000. Next, they're murdering people.
Well,
Is that what you want,
happened
Brent?
But that is the exact same thing, because all you're saying is
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. You just said nothing but W's matter. That's what it means. It doesn't matter what happens. You don't care what kind of character you're getting. You just want to get your best player on the field because you want to draw eyes and get W's. So you're going to look past certain things. Obviously, murder and stuff is a lot. No one's saying that's equivalent to accepting money
You just
for a
said it.
flight.
You just said it was the
You
same
just
thing.
said it just now.
It's the same thing as the
Breaking
argument
rules is
of
breaking
how,
rules.
yeah, it's a slimy, slippery slope in the world you want to live in. Of it doesn't matter. I don't care what he did. I just want the best players on the field. That's what I don't want to go down. And
But
I
what
think,
if it's a stupid rule to begin with?
so is wearing a seatbelt. If you don't wear a seatbelt, then tough. But guess what? If you get slapped with it, it's a fine. There you go. That's your own safety. That's your own driving. That's your own thing. But it's law.
That's a different rabbit hole we can go under.
Yeah, seriously. So what's America's role as the world's police?
But anyways, well, I think that'll probably conclude this week's episode. We've reached our hour. So, again, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find us on all major places where you can find podcasts.
Yeah, Spotify, Apple
iTunes.
Podcast, and YouTube.
Right.
As always.
So, as always, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Brush your teeth.